Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. I am watching TV. The news is covering a case involving the singer Taylor. The court just issued a 5-year restraining order against a stalker. He had gone to her house multiple times, even bringing a glass bottle as a weapon, and claimed they had children together. The spokesperson said this wasn't the first time she had faced this kind of situation. This incident reminds me of my own story from 3 years ago. I was 17 then, and pretty popular on Instagram under the name @dear.emily. Thinking about it now still gives me the chills. Back then, I had over 70,000 followers. That number wasn't because of any special talent. I spent a lot of time studying how to use photo editing apps skillfully. My photos showed flawless white skin, large round eyes, and full lips. Everything was carefully planned, from the angle to the lighting. I looked like an eye-catching mature model, while in real life, I was a pretty isolated high school girl. Every time I posted a photo, I waited for the compliments like an addict waiting for a fix. I read every single comment, smiling at each piece of praise. The number of likes steadily climbed, and I felt like I was doing the right thing. It was success. It was the recognition I deserved. My followers were proof of my worth. The number 70,000 was much bigger than the number of students at my school. They chose to follow me among millions of other accounts. At school, I didn't tell my friends about the account. They would get jealous or cause trouble for my popularity. My parents were quite strict. They always talked about studying and the future. They would take away my phone and call what I was doing frivolous. But they didn't understand. I didn't need anyone to truly understand me. As long as I was still admired online, and my follower count kept growing, I was completely fine. That's what I told myself every night before sleeping, after checking one last time for any new comments. My next goal was to hit 100,000 followers. That number felt like a milestone to prove that more and more people cared about me. And when I achieved that, I wanted a white, limited edition Gucci GG Marmont small matelassé bag. It cost nearly $3,000, an impossible number with my allowance. But I deserved it. I had worked hard to build this perfect image. I needed people to pay me back for my hard work. One night, after failing to figure out a way to make the money, I decided to post a subtle request. I couldn't outright ask for the bag. That would be tacky. I just posted a picture of the Gucci with the caption, "A wish for one day." Inside, I hoped a fan would get the hint. They could spend a little to make me happy. I deserved to be loved that much. 2 days later, an account messaged me. The person said they had been following me for a long time and wanted to gift me the bag. No need to meet, no demands. Just tell them the address of an automated locker for package delivery, and they would send it there. I had to try really hard not to scream with joy, but I didn't want to look too eager, so I set a timer and waited 15 minutes before replying to the message. Finally, someone understood that I deserved the best things. I didn't even feel embarrassed or worried. It was just a small gift from a fan, the way real celebrities receive them every day. The bag arrived exactly as promised. When I opened the box, I couldn't hold back a shriek of happiness. It lay there, perfect in every refined detail. I hugged it like a child, a feeling of pure excitement flooding my entire body. I couldn't take my eyes off the bag. I imagined the stunning photos I would post. I had even thought of the perfect caption. Sometimes magic happens when you least expect it. I wouldn't mention who gifted it, keeping them curious and jealous. But the joy didn't last long. That evening, while I was admiring the bag, my phone vibrated. A message from the person who had sent me the bag. I opened it calmly, thinking they might ask if I had received the gift. But it wasn't a check-in. It was a photo. I shot up, my eyes wide as I stared at the screen. It was me changing clothes, only wearing underwear. The shot was from behind, low and a little blurry, but clear enough. I tried to remember. The time was this afternoon, after I got home with the bag. I had changed clothes to get ready for dinner. My heart pounded. Had I been watched? My phone vibrated again. A second photo appeared. This time, I was completely naked, walking toward my closet. Still the same angle from behind, from a low position. A scream caught in my throat. My hands shaking, I zoomed in on the picture, trying to figure out the angle. It wasn't from the window or the door. It was from a different direction. I looked around and started to cry. I was not safe in my own bedroom. The fear made me feel numbness spread through my whole body. After a few seconds, I picked up the phone again and looked very closely. In the corner of the picture was something. The symbol was the bag. I immediately looked at where the bag was placed. It was in the exact spot, facing the closet, where I usually changed clothes. Right then, the next message appeared. The bag is beautiful, right? But do you know what the real gift is? It's the truth about you. Your real face and your real identity, little girl. Delete your Instagram account now, or your 70,000 followers will see who you really are. I threw my phone onto the bed. I immediately rushed to the bag. Unlike my careful handling before, I flipped it over and found a tiny device cleverly hidden inside. The joyful feelings from earlier now turned into the most horrifying nightmare. I threw the bag and cried out. Why would someone do this to me? I was truly panicking, thinking about my real images being posted online. Everything would end. Everyone would know I was a liar. 70,000 people would laugh at me. I didn't dare tell my parents. For those 3 days, I barely slept. I constantly checked my phone, trembling every time there was a new notification. The bag was under my bed, but I still felt like it was watching me. Finally, I had to comply. My finger shook on the screen as I hit the delete account button. I cried from an extreme feeling of emptiness. A week later, just as the nightmare hadn't quite faded, I discovered a shocking truth. I accidentally saw a notification on my mom's phone that made me freeze in place. It was the exact account that had gifted me the bag. I knew my mom's phone password and unlocked it. It was the same account. The entire conversation with me was still there. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down. The whole thing was a setup orchestrated by my mother. The person who made me live in fear for the past week was my own mom. I hated my mother fiercely in that moment. She had destroyed the only thing that made me feel valuable. I didn't speak to my mom for months afterward. Every time I saw her, I felt angry and hurt. My mom didn't explain either. She just looked at me with a sad gaze, as if she were waiting for something. Now I understand everything my mother did was for me. She saw that I was lost, living in a virtual world, trading my real identity for admiration from strangers. I was willing to accept gifts from strangers, putting myself in danger because of greed and an illusion about my self-worth. If the person who sent the bag hadn't been my mom but a malicious stalker, what happened to me would have been much worse. My mother gave me the most painful lesson. but it was also the lesson that saved my life. I looked up at the TV screen. Taylor has faced many stalkers, but she has an entire security team, lawyers, and resources to defend herself. And me? A 17-year-old girl with 70,000 followers and nobody who truly knew what I looked like. Now I no longer have an account with thousands of followers, but I have a happy life. I realized I always have my family nearby to share with. I always have friends who welcome me with sincerity. Real connections in life are what we need, not the empty concern and fake compliments on social media. I am grateful that the person who taught me the most valuable lesson is the person who loves me the most. I skipped school that day because I was sick. My head felt heavy, and my throat was raw and sore. My parents were busy with work and wouldn't be home until late afternoon. I was 13, so I could take care of myself. It was just me and our cat Scooter in the house. I tried to sleep, but the fever kept making my rest choppy. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a knock at the front door. My parents hadn't mentioned anyone coming over. I was too tired and lazy to deal with a visitor, so I lay still, hoping the person would think no one was home and leave. But a moment later, the knocking came again, louder and longer this time. I sat up and immediately felt a little dizzy. I walked over to my bedroom window and looked down. A small pickup truck was parked in front of the house. On the side of the truck was a picture of an bug and the name of a pest control company. I saw a figure opening the storm door and peering inside the main door. I thought maybe my parents had scheduled a pest technician and just forgot to tell me, but I still decided to stay put in my room. I figured we could deal with any bugs another day. About 10 minutes later, I felt thirsty and thought he must have left, so I went down to the kitchen. The kitchen window looked out onto the backyard and a large wooden deck that connected to the living room through a big glass door. The sunroom was also back there. It was a small room with 3 glass walls, positioned between the deck and the living room. Mom usually left the sunroom door open so Scooter could go in and out freely. As soon as I walked into the kitchen and was about to pour a glass of water, I froze. I saw the man moving along the back of the house. He was out on the deck, walking along the wall of the house, going from window to window. Then he stopped, pressed his face against the glass, and even used his hand to block the sun to see clearly inside. He was wearing a company uniform and looked like a normal exterminator, but his actions were very strange. I backed up to stay out of his sight. I stayed quiet, hoping he would leave soon. A few minutes passed. When I looked again, I didn't see him on the deck anymore. I quietly moved into the hallway near the living room. I was startled to see the man was now inside the sunroom. He was looking down at Scooter, who was lying on the wicker chair. From where I stood, I could only see his back. I walked through the living room, went to the sunroom door, opened it sharply, and said loudly, "You can't be in here, please go outside." But my voice trembled, sounding like a child about to cry. Contrary to what I expected, he turned to look at me and smiled in a friendly way. "Oh, hi there. You must be Emma, right?" How do you know my name? Can I just step inside to check?" "It will only take a couple of minutes." My head was still fuzzy from the fever. My parents are at work. As soon as those words left my mouth, my mind flashed wide awake. No. Why did I say that? I just told him I was home alone. That was so stupid. I wanted to take the words back, but it was too late. I saw the look in his eyes change. He looked me up and down slowly. "All right, I'll come back another time." He turned and left calmly. I watched him go. The second he stepped off the deck, I immediately slammed the sunroom door shut. My hands were shaking so much It took 2 tries to turn the lock. I ran back upstairs and stood at the window to watch. He was back in his truck, but he didn't leave right away. He just sat there looking toward my house. Then he suddenly looked up toward my bedroom window. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding like it wanted to burst out of my chest. A few minutes went by, and he was still sitting there. I wondered why he hadn't left yet. Finally, the engine started, and the truck slowly drove away. Only after it was completely out of sight did I sink onto the floor. My whole body wouldn't stop shaking. I hugged my knees, trying to breathe normally, but I couldn't. I called my mom. The moment her voice came through the phone, I nearly burst into tears. I told her the whole story. I didn't call the pest control company today. You didn't open the door for him, did you? No, but he got into the sunroom, and he knew my name. Mom told me to lock every door and said she was coming home right now. About 20 minutes later, I heard Mom's car. I rushed downstairs and hugged her tight. Even then, I was still shaking with fear. A few minutes later, Dad also got home. Mom had called him. While Mom gave me some medicine, Dad did a full check of the house. There were no signs of anything unusual. Later, Mom suddenly remembered that our family had used that same pest control company once last year. They might have kept our information and sent someone for a routine checkup. Even though Mom later explained it might have just been a coincidence, I will never forget the feeling of helplessness and fear when I faced a stranger inside my own home. That day taught me a lesson about absolute caution and vigilance, even when you are inside your own house.
I'm Colleen, 25. I currently have a steady job in accounting. I met Cameron through a mutual friend. We quickly fell in love just a month after meeting. Partly because I was smitten by Cameron's good looks, and partly because he's so warm, genuine, and thoughtful. I even thought about marrying Cameron just 2 weeks into dating. The first 3 months of our relationship were definitely as sweet as a fairy tale romance. Cameron had a unique hobby that he was really passionate about. My 29-year-old boyfriend was really into fairy tales for kids at heart. He spent hours every day reading books and watching movies about fairy tale worlds. There were stories Cameron had read hundreds of times, knowing every detail, every word, every comma. I respected his hobby, especially since I'm a big bookworm myself. We usually went to the bookstore together once a week, for it was a good date spot. By the 4th month of our relationship, Cameron started showing some unusual irritability. Cameron yelled at me for picking up a fork before he sat down at the table. He constantly complained and got annoyed when I didn't put my glass on the coaster. I wasn't allowed to buy or eat anything that could make a mess or any food that made noise when chewed. Cameron, in particular, wouldn't come into the house unless the host came out to say hi and invite him in. He also insisted that I had to do the same. It would be very rude and even dangerous to do that on your own. The way Cameron laid down a set of rules for me was like a princess learning etiquette in a fairy tale, but the way he reacted when I didn't do things exactly right was like someone losing their mind. I started feeling incredibly uncomfortable in this relationship. I broke up with him several times, but he'd always kneel and beg for forgiveness, promising he'd change. He would say sorry for his foolishness, and I kept falling for it, over and over. But Cameron's controlling and irritating behavior just kept getting worse every day. It really took a toll on my mental health. One day, Cameron invited me over to his parents' house for dinner. My parents want to meet you because I told them you're as beautiful as Sleeping Beauty in the forest. I agreed to go to Cameron's parents' house. I thought maybe I could figure out how to deal with Cameron's behavior after getting some advice from his mom. The next day, Cameron took me shopping for a dress to wear for the dinner. I told Cameron it wasn't necessary since I already had plenty of clothes. A dinner at my boyfriend's house didn't need to be fancy. No, you need to look like a princess. My parents will really appreciate it. Appreciate? I repeated what Cameron said and stressed it when I saw him smiling. Don't be so harsh with your attitude and tone. It'll make you seem really rude. I didn't bother to respond to Cameron and just stared out the car window. I wasn't sure if it was the right choice to accept or not. As Cameron said, he took me to a store that had dresses just like the ones fairy tale princesses wear. Without letting me say anything, Cameron had me try on a bunch of dresses with layers and layers of heavy fabric. In the end, he brilliantly picked the most uncomfortable and heavy one for me to wear. I should have just left and ended it right there. I don't know why I have such incredible patience and endurance. Or was I just being stupid? After buying the princess dress, Cameron took me to a makeup shop. After sitting still for 3 hours, I looked at myself in the mirror and was amazed at how beautiful I looked. I didn't think I'd look as beautiful as Princess Aurora. Let's head home now and brush up on some more manners. Cameron's words felt like a hard slap to me. Cameron then quickly pulled me away. That night, instead of taking me to his parents' house, Cameron called a taxi for me. I'll go home and get everything ready with my parents to welcome you. I could see the taxi driver's eyes glancing at the rearview mirror every 5 seconds. I struggled to get out of the taxi in that heavy dress. Cameron's parents' house is a wooden house, and it's got a pretty fairy tale vibe to it. I walked up to the door to ring the bell and saw a note stuck above it. Hey, my parents and I need to step out for a bit. It won't be long. The door was slightly open, so I walked in. I needed to sit down right away because my feet were going numb from the high heels. The inside of the house was pretty cozy. I sat down at a small wooden table and looked around for a bit. I was about to suffocate in this corset after wearing it for nearly 6 hours. I couldn't even tell if I was lying down or sitting, as long as it was comfortable though. I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast until that evening. Seeing the plate of cookies on the table, I grabbed one to have before dinner. Crumbs fell everywhere, so I quickly stood up, brushed them off, and went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I drank my water while checking out the kitchen utensils. They were irresistibly cute. I heard some noise from outside, so I quickly ran to the living room and sat down, thinking Cameron and his parents had come back. But no one was there. I sat and waited for a few more minutes, and then I suddenly heard a growl. Actually, it sounded like someone was trying to growl like a hungry lion. I stood up and looked in the direction where I thought the growl was coming from. A very unpleasant creaking sound came from the door of a room, and at the same time, it slowly opened. I was startled when 2 people in bear mascot costumes popped out from inside. Their faces were partially visible, but I couldn't see them clearly. They slowly approached me, still growling. I was really confused. I asked multiple times who they were, but they just kept up their strange behavior. I quickly ran towards the door, but another person in a bear mascot costume blocked my way. Cameron? I gasped when I saw Cameron's face peeking out from inside. What is the meaning of this?
You're going to be punished for not passing the challenge. You walked into a stranger's house without knocking. You ate cookies and drank water without asking. I especially don't accept your sitting posture.
The two people who just came out of that room were Cameron's parents. What on earth was going on? I was the invited guest for dinner. Why was my personality being tested? At my limit, I took off the crown from my head, threw it at Cameron, and shouted. Immediately, Cameron and his parents started roaring like they had lost their minds. They threatened to tear me apart, like the wicked characters in fairy tales who got their comeuppance. The eyes of those three were red and veiny, and their behavior was completely out of the ordinary. I was terrified and bolted out of the house. I took off my painful high heels, ran as fast as I could, and called the police. Now I understood why princesses always seem so slow and useless in emergencies like this. The dress was too heavy and cumbersome. Cameron's rough hands grabbed my hair and yanked me back. Luckily, the police arrived just in time to rescue me. I was in a terrible state, with torn clothes and bite marks all over my arms and calves. Cameron's family was taken to a mental health facility for treatment and detention. I was in shock and had to be hospitalized to have the bite marks carefully monitored. I was haunted by images of princesses, castles, and all that stuff. What if the police hadn't come in time? Would those people eat me alive?
I'm Tabby. I'm 32, kinda introverted and pretty shy. I've been in 3 relationships, and all of them ended up hurting me. But that's not really why I've lost faith. I choose to stay positive, and I'm always open to new relationships. Like a lot of other girls, I use dating apps to meet people and get to know them. It's pretty interesting to go on a date like this, going out to eat, watching a movie, or hitting up a cafe with a complete stranger. It's both curious and surprising, but I still haven't found my match. One evening, I grabbed dinner with my best friend Maggie. Since I got off of work early, I headed to the restaurant where we planned to meet for dinner. Maggie had snagged us a table ahead of time, so I went to find our table number and waited for her. Looking around, I noticed several couples happily chowing down. I looked at them with major admiration. I pulled out my phone and opened the dating app to check out a few guys. It's been almost 20 minutes and Maggie still hadn't shown up. I called her, feeling impatient.
Tabby, I'm in a taxi, but traffic is crazy right now. Go ahead and order without me.
After getting my best friend's call, I didn't order anything. I just kept sitting there on my phone. About 10 minutes later, a guy came up to my table and sat down. He looked at me and smiled, and suddenly, my heart started beating faster. "Hi, I wonder if this table was reserved?" It took me a few seconds to understand his question, and I answered him, still confused. He introduced himself as Samson, 31 years old. I smiled a little, thinking briefly about the guy in front of me. Why didn't he leave when I told him this table was booked? Was he just trying to... I already booked this table, just wondering if there's been a mix-up. His words caught me off guard. I glanced back at the text from Maggie and then assured Samson confidently. He smiled and slid the phone with the table reservation info over to me. I called Maggie, feeling confused.
Sorry, Tabby. I got the table number wrong.
That clumsy Maggie. Samson probably overheard Maggie's words from the phone. He looked at me and smiled. Feeling shy, I quickly apologized and left. It turns out that Maggie's table was in the opposite. I sat down and glanced over at Samson's table. He was focusing on his phone. For some reason, I just sat there, staring blankly at Samson. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a text. I was surprised when I read it. It was from Maggie. She sent me an article about the risks of using dating apps. There have been quite a few victims who have been scammed out of both love and money. I texted Maggie back, telling her to hurry up because I was starving and hadn't even noticed the article. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Maggie. It was a message from a strange account on a dating app. His name's Finn. We hit each other off because we have a lot in common. Texting with Finn for a bit, he was really funny and had me chuckling. I accidentally glanced at Samson's table and saw a girl sitting across from him. I figured she was his girlfriend. While Samson was being really nice and upbeat, his girlfriend looked kinda down. Samson carefully dropped the beef on his girlfriend's plate. She totally freaked out, shaking Samson's hand and making the meat and sauce splash everywhere on the table. I was so surprised that I screamed, then quickly covered my mouth with my hand. But Samson heard me, and he turned to look at me, seeming pretty annoyed. I quickly looked away. I checked my phone, but Finn wasn't responding to my messages anymore. All of a sudden, a loud crash startled me and a few folks nearby. Back at Samson's table, he and his girlfriend were really going at it, having a serious argument. Right under their feet was a smashed plate of food. The girl kept laying into Samson with harsh words and a really nasty attitude. Samson, on the other hand, stayed cool and calmly explained things. According to what the other girl said, Samson seemed like he'd been playing around and cheating on her a bunch. Their argument quickly became the center of attention on the restaurant's second floor. Finally, the girl stormed out in anger. Samson tried to chase after his girlfriend, but he looked pretty helpless. My phone buzzed again. It was Finn. He apologized because something unexpected came up that he had to deal with. I kept chatting with Finn. He was pretty chill to talk to. Since I'm not young anymore and open to relationships, I said yes to Finn's invitation for a date that night at 9 p.m. It's almost 7:30, so I still have time to grab dinner with Maggie and get her advice on the date. Maggie still isn't here, and I started to lose my patience with her stubbornness. I got up and headed to the toilet. While I was washing up, Finn texted me again. "It'd be awesome if you wore a red outfit on our date." Checking myself out in the mirror, I was wearing a red dress with a pretty killer neckline. Could this just be a coincidence? Or have I found my match? I thought about it, grinned a little, checked myself out in the mirror, and touched up my makeup a bit. Out of nowhere, a girl bursts through the bathroom door and dashes inside. She told her two friends at the sink nearby, sounding totally freaked out. "Someone got killed outside." The three girls left the bathroom together, and it was obvious they were more curious than scared. I quickly got out of there too. Outside the restaurant, there was a crowd, and all I could hear was people talking and police sirens blaring, making it a real mess. The cops told everyone to scatter, and I saw the victim. It was a girl lying on the street with a really deep, long cut on her neck, blood still coming out nonstop. I was shocked to realize it was the same girl who had dinner with Samson earlier. She also wore a red silk dress. Thinking about Finn's recent text message, I suddenly froze up. I panicked and glanced around, feeling like someone was tailing me. I dashed over to the cops, shaking, and spilled everything I knew. When Maggie showed up, I just hugged my bestie tight and started crying because I was freaked out. After calling him in and checking it out, police confirmed Samson didn't do anything to his girlfriend. He admitted to messing around with a few others, but he swore he didn't do anything that bad and had an alibi for the whole thing. When police checked out Finn's account, they didn't find any leads or useful info. I was freaking out even more and totally lost. Good thing I haven't gone to that date, but I'm freaking out because the person who did it is still out there. Is he like watching me and knowing everything I do?
I'm Claire, a 22-year-old senior at Kent State. Back in my second semester of freshman year, I babysat in the evenings to make some extra cash. That ended up being both my first and last part-time job because it was straight up traumatic. This happened 3 winters ago. The Smith's house sits in a quiet neighborhood out in the Ohio suburbs. The roof was covered in snow, and the warm yellow glow from the windows made it look super cozy. Inside, their 2-story house felt homey. The furniture was all neatly arranged, family photos lined the walls, and the wooden floors had this nice shine to them. I was looking after Max, their 3-year-old son, who was happily playing with his favorite teddy bear, his little eyes full of curiosity. I spent the evening taking care of him, feeding him, telling him stories, and putting him to bed. Max's room was small but cozy, the nightlight taking the edge off the cold outside. As he drifted off, clutching his teddy bear, I checked the baby monitor to make sure I had a clear view, then headed back to the living room. Curled up on the sofa with a book, I enjoyed the peaceful moment of a winter night. Around 1 a.m., I was startled by a rustling sound coming from the monitor. The noise was small but clear, like the sound of clothes rubbing together or someone moving in Max's room. As I stared at the screen, a chill ran down my spine. Max wasn't in his crib anymore. The boy stood in the middle of the room, his small frame motionless. His eyes were empty, devoid of emotion, staring directly at the camera as if he were watching me through the screen. My heart pounded. Max was only 3 years old. How could he climb out of the crib that high? I told myself it could be a device malfunction, but the image was too real to be just a technical issue. Grabbing the baby monitor, I headed upstairs. The wooden floor creaked under me, and with every step, the air felt colder. When I pushed open Max's door, I just stood there, stunned. He was still sound asleep in his crib. I glanced back at the monitor. Max's creepy, motionless figure was gone. Now, it just showed him peacefully sleeping. I scanned the room, everything looking normal, except for one small thing. His teddy bear, the one he'd been holding, was now on the floor a few steps from the crib. I picked it up, placed it back in Max's hand, and tried to shake off the unease. Maybe the boy dropped the teddy bear while sleeping. But why was it so far away? Back in the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The cold sank into my skin, making my heart race. That eerie image of Max standing frozen in the middle of the room wouldn't leave my mind. About half an hour later, as I tried to relax, a loud noise came from upstairs. A child's giggles, mixed with light but hurried footsteps, as if Max were running around the room. I quickly walked up the stairs and opened Max's door. He was still lying there, fast asleep. But the window was wide open, and the cold wind blew in, making the curtains flutter. In a panic, I looked back at the monitor. The light from the camera flickered, and then suddenly, a blurry figure crossed the frame. It was taller than a child, moving so fast that I couldn't see it clearly. The next morning, I told Mrs. Smith, Max's mother, everything. She listened but seemed uneasy, her eyes awkward, and her forced smile made me feel like she wasn't too surprised. She said that Max had talked about a friend who played with him at night. This friend didn't like strangers, especially me. A chill ran through me, but Miss Smith just gave an awkward smile and said kids have wild imaginations. Then she mentioned hearing footsteps at night or finding windows open for no reason. Mrs. Smith revealed a detail that made my skin crawl. The house was built on the grounds of an old mental asylum that was demolished in the 1970s. The locals whispered that the land had issues, but the Smith family didn't believe in ghost stories. They stayed because they had never encountered anything truly dangerous, at least not until now. After that night, I decided to quit. Nothing dangerous happened, but that creepy feeling never left me, and I just couldn't do the job anymore. The Smith family decided to move a few months later. One day, when I happened to run into them in town, Mrs. Smith said that Max still talked about his friend. He said the friend was sad he left. Sometimes, Max even said he saw the friend standing outside the window, watching him. I still don't know what really happened that night, but every time I think back, I can't shake the feeling that someone's still watching me from the shadows. The cold, Max's empty eyes, and the blurry figure on the baby monitor, they still haunt me to this day.
I'm Benny, 31 years old. I'm working as a production manager for one of the 10 largest companies in the US. I've worked very hard to get to my current position, and I really love my job. My company often holds luxurious parties at the end of the year to appreciate employees' contributions throughout the working year. During the party, there will be activities including dining, entertainment, and a charity auction. Last year's end party also had similar activities as every year. This time, the company allows employees to bring a relative along. I immediately thought of Donna, my beautiful girlfriend. The party invested by the company was very grand. The venue is a famous local 5-star restaurant. Donna and I arrived at the party greeting everyone. Donna is very excited about everything around her. Knowing my position in the company, she really admired it. I am also confident that I have scored more points in her eyes. The party, with the participation of more than 3,000 employees, was deafening. I told Donna to follow me closely to avoid getting lost. Around 6:30 p.m. we started the party. Company leaders will give opening remarks. The next part is to honor and reward employees who have made outstanding contributions. When standing on the podium to receive the award, I was very happy to see Donna standing below, clapping her hands and looking at me, smiling. At 7 p.m., we started the dining portion. The party format will be buffet. Beautifully decorated and extremely luxurious dishes were served. The LED screen suddenly appeared with a video of the restaurant's chef. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Anthony, the restaurant's executive chef with nearly 30 years of experience. We would like to respectfully introduce to everyone dishes filled with passion, made from Anthony's unique ingredients, wishing everyone a delicious meal. Everyone was very surprised, and I was very impressed with the chef's eyes and smile at the end of the video. It felt like he was trying to convey something. Having the chef personally introduce the dish made us feel appreciated and cared for. This restaurant really knows how to please customers, I whispered in Donna's ear. She smiled happily. Everyone started eating and drinking happily. Donna's food is delicious. She constantly praises the food here. Not only Donna, everyone nodded while eating. I have quite a hard time eating. With unfamiliar foods, I will hesitate to eat them or even be cautious because I have some stomach problems. Seeing everyone's expressions while eating makes me curious about the taste. I took a look around. The dishes here didn't have name tags or any information about the ingredients. This is very strange compared to other 5-star restaurants I've been to. I don't know what the unique ingredient the chef said is. In the end, I chose a dish that was quite similar to steak. The taste of the dish is very strange, but very delicious. The meat is soft and mixed with sauce. I started to get excited and continued to enjoy the next dishes. Suddenly, Donna shouted loudly with joy. She ran up to me boasting that she had found a ring in the dessert. Donna picked up the ring and smiled excitedly. "Benny, I think it's a diamond." I looked at the ring. It was indeed decorated with a diamond-like stone. I and everyone nearby were surprised. Could this be a random lucky gift secretly prepared by the company? But lucky gifts usually won't be placed in dishes like that, which is confusing. I was bewildered, and Donna was very happy to put the ring on her finger. Suddenly, a guy standing not far from us exclaimed, "There are human fingers in the soup!" Everyone who could hear those words immediately turned their gaze towards the guy. Continuously, other strange things appear in food, such as hair, eyelashes and nails. The surrounding atmosphere was chaotic. People talk endlessly about the food. The company representative requested to meet the restaurant's manager and chef. A loud crash and a girl's scream rang out right behind me and Donna. Everyone was silent. The large bowl of hot soup burst and flowed all over the floor. What made everyone scared and dumbfounded was the human skull with some skin still attached with 2 white eyes rolling on the floor. The hand bones with 5 intact fingers floated right in front of me and Donna. Donna hugged me tightly and fainted. Some people burst into tears, and some older people even had heart attacks. The sounds of vomiting, crying, screaming all created a chaotic scene. It's like the end of the world is coming. We have to try to escape from that cruelty. We didn't say it, but everyone was aware of what they had just eaten. The haunting incident caused the company huge losses when overnight, up to 30% of employees resigned. The horror party from the restaurant was also reported by the national media, and the company's shares fell to a record level. The restaurant's chef was arrested. He's still very proud of what he did. According to the police investigation, the material he said was unique was taken from his wife, who had lived with him for 20 years. He was diagnosed with severe schizophrenia. Donna was so obsessed that she had to undergo psychological treatment at the hospital. Her family was very angry and asked me to stay away from their daughter. I have lost contact with Donna since then. Currently, I still work at the company. Every event organized by the company is also calculated and has very high requirements so that no more unfortunate events would have occurred.
I'm Louis, 35 years old, living in Los Angeles. My neighbor was a rich couple, Cassie and Joey. Together they're having a 6-year-old son, Jason. Since their work was very busy, I hired a babysitter named Kaylee, who lived within their home and taking care of Jason full-time. The two of them were very close, to the point that Jason often considered Kaylee his second mother. One night, while Kaylee was busy with her secondary work as online translator, there were sounds like the little boy was watching an action movie, totally unsuited for kids. Normally, Kaylee was sure to never let the boy see those shows, yet today, she's too busy with work to notice much. After a while, the boy yelled out in fear, then bursted out crying, claiming to Kaylee there's a monster in the TV. Thinking little of it, she thought it's just a scary scene of the movie. However, she felt guilty for letting the boy see it, so she told the boy to stay calm, then go to bed. Everything would be all right. Jason obediently followed her instruction, telling her goodbye, then went to his room. Kaylee continued with doing her work, then fell into exhaustion soon after. She woke up suddenly sometime later due to the sound on TV being too loud, which was very odd, since she's sure to turn off the TV beforehand. When Kaylee approached the screen, the TV suddenly got static and the shadow of a man suddenly appeared. She fell backward in fear as the man slowly got closer to the screen, mumbling some unintelligible saying. Thinking about Jason, she immediately turned off the TV and went to his room to check on him. Kaylee pushed the door in, only to almost faint at the sight of what she sees. There's a warm liquid pooling all over the room, crimson red, vicious as blood. Jason was lying on the floor, twisted in terror. Blood kept oozing from his mouth. Frightened, Kaylee went all the way downstairs to call the police. Only until after calling the police that she realized that her knees and elbows were all torn open, blood oozing out of the wounds. She couldn't even walk, but had to resort to slipping in order to get down to the first floor. After the coroners went over and performed the autopsy on the little boy, they were unable to determine the cause of death. There wasn't any heavy impacts upon his body, nor any signs of intrusion or any external traces from the outside. Jason's death made Kaylee become the prime suspect. The parents were furious. They swore to make Kaylee pay for her crime. Despite the story of the monster in a man-shaped story, nobody believed her. They all assumed it to be a silly justification for her negligence in true crime. Kaylee was fired on that very day and was ordered to move out of the house on the next day. However, early the following morning, Kaylee went missing, yet the bloody pools around the home were traced to her DNA. Once again, the police hit the dead end. There's no sign of forced entry of violence nor suicidal attempts. The forces that were mobilized on the search for Kaylee went off the cold trails for months without any results. Nobody knew where she was now, even alive or dead. The house of tragedy had since been put up on sale, and the poor couple had long been away elsewhere. Many years had passed. The house was still haunted with bad rumors and now laid abandoned, unkempt at the roadside. The true story about the death of Jason and disappearance of Kaylee remained a mystery. Until it came back for my family, this time. My wife, Santa. We're newlyweds. When I told my wife about the history of the haunted house, in stark contrast to many others, she actually believed in the tales. One day when I'm back from work, Xana was watching near the TV, panicking. When she saw me, she said that there's someone in the TV mumbling something. I quickly took Xana into the bedroom and locked all the doors. She was in fear, shivering when hugging me tightly. Suddenly there came the sound of static and a mumbling of a man. Xana told me that was exactly like the sound of the creature on the TV. I came to the drawer and pulled out a prepared pistol, magazines loaded. I told her to lock the door tight and immediately called the police. She began crying, begging me to stay. She didn't want me to get hurt. Despite my wife's pleading, I held out my weapon, slowly making my way down to the living room. The dwindling lights combining with the static murmur of the man was like a scene from a horror movie. The atmosphere was pretty tense, to the point of it went off at any moment. Coming closer to the light, the mumbling became louder and louder, though I wouldn't understand what the hell he's talking about. It was indeed a male figure in the TV, which was very odd. I remember having turned off the TV and right there, pulled out the plug already. Who the hell was that guy? And what the fuck is going on? I inched closer, squinting my eyes to look at this more carefully. The same man seemed to mimic what I was doing, inching closer, his bloodshot eyes, rough-looking face with a devilish smile, all turned upside down looking at me. I emptied an entire magazine to the TV screen, which made his face disappear as the screen broke into pieces, yet the maniac laughter remained. When the police arrived, they immediately asked me about the current condition. After a brief scan through the scene, they asked me if there's anyone else in the property. I told them that my wife's in the upstairs bedroom and locked the door there. The police came up, asking a lot of time for Xana's response, but replied only by silence. Suddenly, a stream of crimson red blood oozed out from the inside, which made me lose all nerves. I bashed against the door with all my might, frantically calling out for her, despite the injuries I'm causing to myself. The police calmly dragged me away and professionally breached through the door. Xana was inside the room, her body twisted and turned. Blood oozed out crazily from her mouth. I hugged her lifeless body in extreme pain and despair. I had fallen to that monster's trap. My biggest regret that would always haunt me was thinking about her final moment when she begged me to stay, then alone facing that monster all by herself. I have many times tried to end my life, haunted by the experience, but I can't. I went deeper into the bottom of all this. I want to bring that fucking monster to the light. I know later that in that very night, many families around me would face similar tragedies where one of their family members was killed in a similar fashion. The same twisted and turned body and the cause of death remaining a mystery. They said hope is a fleeting dream, yet for me, it's the driving force that I am still here. I'm still hoping for one day, Kaylee. The only person who's not sure to be dead by the hands of the monster would return.
and may hold the key to answer this question. I am Beavis, 17 years old. I live with my father and mother in a small house at the edge of town. We moved into this house 2 years ago. To be honest, I don't like this current house very much. It always feels cold. That's just how I feel, but my parents don't feel that way. 2 years ago, we moved here because my parents said that the old house haunted them. Our neighbor next to the old house was murdered. Her name was Erica. I still remember her a lot. She was a warm and kind woman. Miss Erica's murder shocked the entire street at the time, but only my family moved away. My parents kept repeating that they felt scared and haunted, but I didn't think things were that serious. The old house was much more spacious and comfortable than the current one. When we first moved here, I was very stressed about adjusting to the new school and making new friends. And I met Ven, whose family had also moved here just over a month ago. Luckily, Ven and I got along quite well and quickly became close friends. My parents are very fond of Ven, and his parents also see me as a second son. Most of the time, we would be at Ven's house, and I even stayed there for a whole week. My parents don't have any issues, they're always busy. The meals cooked by Ven's mother made me gain over 8 pounds in just the first month of summer vacation. Ven and I share the hobby of sitting together for hours, each glued to our own laptop. I'm into gaming, while Ven enjoys programming. Recently, Ven discovered the dark web, and he's been wandering around it all day. There's a lot of bad content on there, Ven. Be sure to filter the information you access and receive. I don't like that he's using that website at all. Before agreeing to buy me a laptop for my 16th birthday, the dark web was the first thing my parents forbade me from exploring. I listened to my parents because I wasn't really curious about what's on there anyway. There are plenty of other websites to use, and I'm more interested in games anyway. One morning, I woke up at 8:30. As a habit, the first thing I do is check my phone. A dozen messages appeared, all from Ven. This isn't the first time he sent messages like this, so I wasn't very surprised. Beavis, are you asleep yet? Beavis, I have something very important I want to show you. Beavis, please read the message. The content of the remaining messages was similar, and they were sent at 1 a.m. I sat up and replied to Ven's message with just 3 curt words. What's going on? Ven isn't online yet. He might still be asleep. I didn't worry about it anymore. It was probably some unusual news or a new app he had just finished programming. I took care of my personal hygiene and went downstairs to the living room. My parents weren't home. I had no idea where they had gone so early. While I was rummaging for some food in the cupboard, my phone rang. It was Ven.
Beavis, Ven is missing.
Ven's mother, crying, informed me of the shocking news. I immediately ran over to his house. The police were inspecting around the house and talking with Ven's father. His mother was deeply distraught. She couldn't stop crying. When she saw me, Ven's mother repeatedly asked for help to find her son. When did he disappear? I'm not sure. I didn't see him when I woke up this morning. I recounted that Ven had still been texting me the night before and showed the message thread to the police for investigation. May I please go into Ven's room? The police instructed me to preserve the crime scene and to wear gloves. I went into Ven's room, and the laptop, being the most valuable item, was still there. Sitting at Ven's desk, I went through his computer. Many browsers and applications were still open. Dark web. There were nearly 20 tabs open about this website. I ran out, gently locked the room door, and went back to carefully examine the activity on Ven's laptop. Beavis Miller, the search content on the dark web by Ven, and that's my name.
There were at least a dozen tabs with such search content, but there were no search results. Why was he searching for my name? A heavy question weighed heavily on my mind. Additionally, in other tabs, I saw that Ven had searched for my parents' names and found some results, including a few videos. This situation feels anything but simple. I stood up and left the room, and Ven's mother hurriedly asked how things were. "Did you notice anything unusual?" No ma'am, I have to go now. I'll ask around with friends about Ven." I ran home quickly, turned on my laptop, and searched the dark web. I typed in my parents' names and 2 videos appeared. Click on the first video. Miss Erica. I gasped when the image of the old neighbor appeared on the screen. She was tied to a chair in the middle of a dark and empty room. Her face was terrified, and she was continuously pleading with someone. At the 15th second, 2 other people appeared, and they were my father and my mother. The most terrifying and haunting 5 minutes of my life began. My parents slowly made their ways to Erica, and they cut her into pieces. I felt short of breath, had a headache, dizziness, nausea, and chills. So Miss Erica was murdered by my own parents. The reason my parents insisted on moving houses was also because of this matter. Could Ven's late-night messages also have been to warn me? My body trembled uncontrollably. There's one more video. I took a deep breath and played it. A man had a bag over his head. Muffled sounds were coming out, and I had no idea who he was. My parents appeared again, and they were laughing with great enjoyment. The barbaric laughter made me cry. These weren't my parents. They were holding a sharp machete and yanked the bag off the man's head. "Then," I shouted, panicked and surprised.
I almost screamed when Ven's face showed up on the screen. My best friend, the one I thought of like a brother, was tied up and freaking out. Ven struggled, totally helpless, his eyes wide with fear. The image of my parents, who'd always been my rock, standing there with cold smiles, like they were enjoying every scary moment. My dad was holding a sharp kitchen knife, and my mom was standing next to him, her eyes full of cruelty I'd never seen before. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My hands were shaking. I almost dropped my laptop. I felt nauseous, dropped to the floor, and my whole body just felt completely drained. Each image on the screen felt like a knife digging into my mind, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to turn off the video, wanted to toss the laptop, but I just couldn't look away from that nightmare of a truth. Ven was getting torn apart, his cries fading as my parents got closer. They whispered something to each other, and then the light in Ven's eyes just went out. The screen went dark, and I was tossed straight into a nightmare. How could I believe the people who'd always protected and loved me could be this cruel? My mind kept spinning between the good memories and the nightmares right in front of me. After a long while regaining my senses and a bit of clarity, I ran to my parents' room, searching through everything in hopes of uncovering more information. I saw a list containing information about many people, including Mrs. Erica and Ven. I flipped it over and saw a note that said 18th birthday plans on it. The last line of the note said, "Perfect timing, after dinner." My heart was racing. Other photos in the file popped up too. A box of sleeping pills, a butcher knife, just like the one in the Ven torture video, and a pic of the exact spot in the woods behind the house with the words, "Ideal burial spot," written on it. As I went through the files, I found a bunch of photos and videos about a cult my parents had joined. The cult symbol was a pentagram inside a circle with the words, "Sacrifice for purification," written on it. One of the pictures showed a secret meeting with a bunch of masked guys doing some kind of ritual on a person tied up in the middle of a dark room.
There was a voice in the video I didn't recognize, but then I heard a voice I knew, my mom's. She was reading from this thick book, talking about how human sacrifice was the only way to achieve true salvation. I couldn't breathe. My heart sank as I realized I was the perfect target in their messed up plan. It felt like my world was crashing down. The love, the safety, it was all just a mask. I'd been living a lie for years and didn't even know it. Now I was just a target, a victim of some twisted plan. And the betrayal hurt so bad I wanted to scream, but couldn't. Every time I looked in the mirror, all I saw was a messed up face, torn apart by doubt and guilt. Every night I'd wake up from a nightmare, drenched in sweat, with my parents' empty eyes and Ben's last smile stuck in my head. I wanted to believe this was just a dream, but every time I looked at the documents with my name on it, the pain hit so hard I had to face the fact there was no going back. I cried, I screamed, I prayed for everything to go back to how it was. But in the end, I realized that staying silent only made things worse, and I couldn't just sit back and watch. I held the phone in my hand, my fingers shaking on the dial pad. These were my parents, the people who raised me and took care of me. But Ben's innocence and the evil plan with my name on it wouldn't let me stay quiet. If I didn't do something, I'd be the next victim. I cried as I hit the call button, tears streaming down my face like they could wash away the pain and guilt. I knew this choice would ruin everything, but it was the only way to protect myself and maybe others too. When the voice on the other end picked up, I wasn't that shy 17-year-old anymore. I was just a witness, hurt and ready to face it all, to expose the awful truth. I decided to stand up and do what my gut told me, even if it meant tearing my family apart. I went to the police station, holding the laptop with all the awful evidence. The investigators watched every frame closely, their faces going from disbelief to total shock. My testimony, along with the videos, was what kicked off the full investigation. The accusation against my parents put me right in the spotlight. They denied everything, but the solid evidence brought them into the courtroom. Sitting in the witness box, I had to face their cold, hateful eyes. These weren't my parents anymore. They'd become strangers I didn't even recognize. When the verdict was read, I felt relieved, like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But this freedom didn't come without a cost. I couldn't shake the guilt of putting my parents in prison. That pain and torment wouldn't leave me alone, so I had to walk away from everything. As soon as I turned 18, I moved to a new city, changed my name, and started fresh. I promised myself I'd leave the past behind and live a life without the darkness and painful memories. But deep down, the scars will always remind me that the truth, no matter how painful, has to come out.
I am Joseph, 27 years old, currently working in real estate. My girlfriend Sarah and I have been together for 8 years. She is 2 years younger than me. Although we haven't made plans to get married, we've been living together for 2 years now. We reside in a comfortable house I bought in Austin, Texas. Sarah is amazing. She's beautiful and understanding. We share everything and do everything together. I often take her to gatherings with friends and business partners. People often tell me how lucky I am to have Sarah. I have a close friend named Charles, and Sarah has a close friend named Selena. Charles has been hitting on Selena, and he asked Sarah and me for help in winning her over. It would be great if they became a couple. We've been happy together until one day. That day, I had an important meeting with clients, so I told Sarah I would be home late. Around 6 p.m., Sarah texted me that she had already arrived home. Feeling reassured, I continued my work, planning to surprise Sarah with a bouquet of sunflowers when I got home. Sunflowers are her favorite flowers. But things didn't go as planned. I ended up coming home 3 hours later than expected. I hurriedly called Sarah right after finishing my work. but she didn't answer. When I arrived home, it was nearly midnight and the lights were still on. I thought Sarah was waiting for me. Entering the house with the bouquet and a cheerful smile, I called out to her, but there was no response. I hung up my coat and put down my laptop, holding the bouquet, and rushed to the kitchen. She wasn't there, although the dining table was set and the food had gone cold. I found it odd. Perhaps Sarah was upset that I was late. I ran upstairs to the bedroom, but it was dark inside. I turned on the light, but Sarah wasn't there. She wasn't in the bathroom or the study either. I started to feel worried. Sarah never gets upset for no reason, and she wouldn't leave me without saying anything to me. Searching throughout the house again, I urgently called Sarah's phone. The ringing echoed somewhere. I chuckled, thinking Sarah was just playing a prank on me. Following the sound of the ringing phone, I once again felt disappointed and more worried. Sarah's phone was lying in the kitchen sink. I unlocked her phone, and the screen displayed our ongoing conversation. Her message asking me when I would be home hadn't been sent. I began to panic. Sarah had never behaved like this before. I called Sarah's parents and her best friend Selena. They all said Sarah hadn't been to their places and hadn't been in touch. I searched the house again, praying that this was just one of Sarah's jokes. I felt utterly helpless and panicked. I called the police to report Sarah missing. They told me to calm down. She might have gone somewhere and forgotten to take her phone. They asked me to wait until the next morning. I was extremely anxious and I couldn't sleep that night, pacing back and forth in the living room hoping to see Sarah's silhouette. Sarah didn't return, and the police began their investigation. The last surveillance camera footage showed her walking home, carrying a bag. She hadn't left the house since then. There were no signs of forced entry into the house. Nothing valuable was taken. Could Sarah have disappeared? With no leads, the police investigation began to stall. I felt like I was going crazy, not being able to find Sarah or understand why she disappeared. A week later, I received the devastating news that Charles, my best friend, was also missing. Coincidentally, Sarah and Charles went missing on this same day. I was plunged into despair. My intuition about this wasn't good at all. Nearly a month after Sarah and Charles went missing, my health and work deteriorated significantly. Several times I met Selena, but she didn't seem concerned about Sarah and Charles. Selena had a new boyfriend. Stupid. That girl and Charles disappeared at the same time, and you didn't notice anything unusual? I regret trusting these two. They're probably having a good time somewhere. Selena's words shocked me. My intuition always being vigilant, I searched the house again. Standing in front of the door leading to the basement, my heart raced and I struggled to breathe. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. A strong smell of death hit my nostrils. In the corner of the basement was Sarah, wearing the dress I had given her. But she didn't look like my beautiful Sarah anymore. Next to her on the floor lay Charles. I recognized his familiar figure. He lay there, arms reaching towards the door. Panic and agony overwhelmed me. I couldn't remember how long I stood there trying to compose myself and call the police. After the autopsies, the police revealed Sarah's cause of death was suffocation due to strangulation, along with signs of assault. Charles was determined to have died after Sarah, with multiple stab wounds to his abdomen and chest. At the crime scene next to Sarah and Charles' bodies, the police found a kitchen knife. There were Sarah's fingerprints on the handle and Charles's on the blade. That knife was one of the set in my kitchen. What horrifying event had occurred to them? Now I understood why Charles always tried to meet Sarah. Was there really a relationship between Sarah and Charles that I didn't know about? Selena's words contained some secret. Losing Sarah was truly painful and horrifying to me.